Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes.
Okay, so welcome to Connection Corner, where we connect with you and reviews, and we're hoping that maybe this may inspire those of you that haven't left a review to take a moment and hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Not all podcast platforms let you write a review, but you can leave star reviews on different podcast platforms. If you're on Apple, though, we love to read these. So this review is a 5-star review from the Katie Robb.
The Katie Robb says, epic resource from those trying to conceive. I stumbled upon this podcast after finding Sophia on Instagram. Sophia and Caitlin do an incredible job of providing nutrition and holistic fertility information in a way that's easy to understand. TTC is stressful and overwhelming at times, and the information shared on this podcast has helped answer so many questions. I'm still bummed about the caffeine news, but I won't hold it against them. Wink. Looking forward to more FFF episodes. The Katie Robb.
I love that. And I also think that the more emojis you guys put in these reviews, the more fun it's going to be for us to read them and try to express what we're seeing. So that's the challenge.
And Katie Robb, let me tell you, I am depressed about the caffeine news. Okay,
Amen.
You know how
Preach.
us science ladies are supposed to approach things unbiasedly, right? We're supposed to just look at the data, not try to find data that supports one view or another view, but just look at what's there and see how the science shapes up. I did not approach the caffeine data in that way. I wanted to be sure that caffeine had no bearing on my fertility. I love coffee. I'm using the word love about coffee. So I was pretty bummed when the hard and fast truth about it, well, you're going to have to listen to the caffeine episode in order to know what I'm talking about. But I feel you on that, the Katie Robb. I felt the same way. So thank you for your review. I'm right there with you. We are so happy that you're listening, and we are beaming that our content has helped you.
Welcome to another episode of Food, Freedom, and Fertility. We are here again, your dietitian besties, Sophia Pavia and Caitlin Johnson.
Hello.
We are, I was thinking you were to come in at the wave, but no. This is the first episode in real time that Sophia and I have recorded, just us, in a while. And I'm pretty excited because we're the dream team. We're the queens of hormones. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important hormones of all, that's going to help you get pregnant, stay pregnant, have a healthy pregnancy, breastfeed, and so much more. Protect your health. The queen of the hormones, progesterone. And Sophia is really taking time and delving into this as like her new thing. This is what she's passionate about right now. Passionate about progesterone. So tell us, Sophia, why is this the pivot? You're pivoting to progesterone. Is it a need you're seeing it? Is it just something that you love treating? What's kind of caused this shift in your business?
Yeah, I mean, jumping right into it, is that, yeah, definitely it's a need. So in the past, what has it been? 3 years that I've been doing this work online on Instagram, and I've been having people, I've been doing Q&As and DMs with people and looking at comments and, getting a lot more feedback from a lot more people than when I was just simply in a private practice. And constant questions about progesterone, constantly, what can I do about it being low? And I was like, man, I'm answering these same questions all the time. And a lot of times my answer is complex. Like, it's not just like I can be like, oh yeah, eat 2 bananas. Okay. Yeah, bye. It's a lot more complex than that. There isn't just one food, one supplement, or one combination of food or one combination of supplements that is going to make a huge impact in your ability to make and use progesterone. the reason it is low, there are many reasons it can be low. And there are many reasons maybe it's of a healthy level, but your body's not using it well. And that paired with was threefold. It was that, it was the fact that I myself had low progesterone going into my first pregnancy, and needed to use supplemental progesterone to carry that pregnancy to term. And then I even had a complication about halfway through the pregnancy and had to be on bed rest and all kinds of things. That was a huge piece of why I was like, man, this is so vital, because that experience was absolutely harrowing. And then the third piece of it is progesterone is extremely important for getting pregnant, but it is, I would argue, just as important throughout your pregnancy. And it is what tees you up to be able to breastfeed. Your breasts develop during pregnancy because of the high levels of progesterone. And it is the stark drop in progesterone, as well as, other hormones changing, that make you produce milk once your baby is born. And so if you don't have enough progesterone through your pregnancy, it's not really recoverable, because your breasts don't just develop on a dime. And once that steady stream of placental progesterone has been interrupted and your baby has been born, your breasts are no longer developing new milk ducts, new milk sacs in order to make milk. It's sort of a done deal. And so then we end up having moms, and I know, Caitlin, this was a piece of your story with your first baby, that are having chronic low supply, moving heaven and earth to try to make more milk, doing all the things, drinking all the water, pumping, triple feeding. They are eating lactation cookies. They're taking every supplement under the sun, removing milk from their breasts every hour, like round the clock craziness, to try to get the ducts and sacs that are there to make milk, which is great. But what if there was just more milk making tissue? What if there were just more workers in the factory? Instead of making the workers do double shifts around the clock, what if we had more factory equipment? And that is what progesterone can do for you. And so I just saw that the implications of progesterone for women now are so far reaching into future generations. It's not just about us being able to get pregnant, stay pregnant, have a baby, but it's about having the motherhood journey that you envisioned. And not only that, breastfeeding impacts the health of generations to come. And so it was something that I had been sort of humming and hawing about for a long time, because it is new for me. I've been doing the general fertility thing for years and years and years. And so to niche down even further to something that there is a great lack of education on, meaning most people don't even know that they need this. So you're not only telling people what to do, but you're trying to help them understand your place in the market, that they even need you.
It's even an issue.
That it's even an issue. So it was just kind of a lot to tackle, but
well, and that's compounded. That's compounded by the fact that doctors don't know to really look for it. Like most doctors won't even pull progesterone, and if they do, I mean, I literally had somebody the other day that was like, "If your progesterone's over 3, that's fine." And this person was pregnant, and I was like, "No, no, 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 no. It is not fine. Is she losing her pregnancy?" So it's not just the consumer themselves, it's their prescribing provider, their diagnostic provider doesn't really know necessarily what they're looking for all the time.
And really, I think it comes down to, I saw this need for a long time. Why did I jump into it now? Why did I decide? Because there's a lot of needs that I see and know about that I don't do anything about. This is the hottest summer we've ever had on record on planet Earth. What am I personally doing about that? Aside from putting solar panels on my house, it's really not my area of expertise. I'm not really doing anything about that. You know what I mean? There are a lot of crises and things happening on our planet and around me that I notice, but I don't necessarily feel like equipped or called to do. And so when it comes to this particular issue, I really just have to put my hands up and say, this is a calling from the Lord. And I just have to trust that He's going to carry me and my family through this and continue to teach me great mysteries about these humans He created, and show me things and lead me to the data that I need to see. Because honestly, listeners, I am learning about this every day still. I am reading about this. I am looking through older works that I've already looked through, the data and research that I've read and books and other people's work and stuff like that for years. And, I've been amassing this data, but I've never looked at it just through the lens of how does this impact progesterone and what does that mean for the woman who's struggling to get pregnant. Now I'm doing that. And so I am learning.
Do you want to take a minute and just explain what progesterone is, and maybe not just its implications
Absolutely.
in fertility, but in overall health of a woman?
Yeah. Okay. So progesterone it's a hormone, and it is made in two main places in your body. And that is, place number one is the adrenal gland, which is a teeny little plop on top of each of your kidneys. And it makes low levels of progesterone, like really low levels of progesterone, almost undetectable, all cycle long. Men's bodies do it too. Because we have a need for progesterone in many different organs of our bodies, our brains, our breasts, our hearts, our digestive systems, our livers, like all of our main organs, our thyroid especially, they really do interact with this hormone progesterone. And it fluctuates over time, okay? Throughout the day, throughout the week, your progesterone will change based off of your body's metabolic needs, the time of day, whether you're gearing up for the day or winding down for the night, progesterone will fluctuate. But in a woman's body, and the progesterone that I am most focused on when it comes to helping you get pregnant, stay pregnant, have that healthy baby, and breastfeed, is the progesterone made by your ovaries after ovulation. So I'll give you just the whip quick, whoop-ha, like Chandler would say. I'll give you the whip quick definition of what, why you need this and what goes on. So you're getting ready for ovulation. Your ovary is developing this beautiful follicle. P.S. She's developing many follicles, but one becomes the queen, and that's when ovulation occurs. The egg bursts out of that sac, and the sac where the egg once was living inside turns into a whole new organ called the corpus luteum, meaning yellow body in Latin, because it turns yellow. Progesterone, in fact, is actually yellow because it contains so much preformed vitamin A. So this corpus luteum begins slowly secreting progesterone, and that progesterone sets off a cascade of events throughout your entire body. The progesterone tells your brain, stop making follicle stimulating hormone, stop making luteinizing hormone. The egg has released, ovulation has occurred. The eggs tell your ovaries, stop cranking out extreme levels of estrogen because the ovulation already occurred, so we don't need that feedback loop back up to your brain. It tells your entire metabolic rate of all the systems of your body to start gearing up and getting ready for this baby. That is why we see a rise in basal body temperature. That's the way that your progesterone communicates with your thyroid, as well as other organs that help your basal body temperature and metabolic rate rise. It communicates with your intestines. It's a relaxing hormone. So we see a decrease in anxiety. We see better sleep. It works with the hypothalamus in your brain, increasing your appetite so that you are getting all that nourishment in to get ready for this baby that your body is hoping and praying is developing. And even if you aren't trying to get pregnant, sister, your body is trying to get pregnant every cycle. Every organism on the planet is trying to reproduce, and so are you. Even if your lifestyle doesn't want you to be pregnant right now, your body's trying. So all of these things start switching around. The progesterone levels will steadily rise over the next week to 2 weeks. If you become pregnant, it'll continue to rise even after that. And that rise in progesterone helps your breasts start developing. This is why you may notice during the luteal phase, especially at the end of the luteal phase, when you're heading towards either a pregnancy or a period, your breasts are more sensitive. They're feeling more heavy and full. You might notice they're even more vascular, like you're seeing more veins on your breasts and chest. That's because that progesterone is developing those milk sacs, even just a little bit during your luteal phase. Even if you were nowhere near your husband and there's no potential that a baby is inside you, your breasts will still be sort of gearing up for hopefully a pregnancy is occurring. And should a miraculous baby be coming into your life, that corpus luteum will continue to pump out progesterone so that baby will implant, send off a signal, human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, and it'll tell that corpus luteum, keep going, girl, keep going. The placenta will begin to develop. The placenta starts making loads of progesterone. Eventually, the ovary can kind of chill out and not have to pull all the work because the placenta starts doing all the work. And if you're not pregnant, the corpus luteum begins to degrade. There's no HCG to tell it, girl, keep on cranking. Your progesterone will tank, drop rapidly, and that is what inspires your uterus to shed its lining, to take down all the decorations it put in that nursery for the baby, and begin your cycle anew so that you will have another chance at pregnancy in your next cycle. So all of that to say that progesterone is communicating with many different parts of your body. It is vital for the health of these parts of your body. And so if we were to just, let's say you never, ever, ever wanted to have a baby. You're like, I'm the next Mother Teresa. I'm going to be working in Calcutta with orphans and lepers. My calling is to the foster system, whatever. You have a beautiful calling on your life that has nothing to do with motherhood. Why are you listening to this podcast? Also, so this is just nothing that you want. Your body still has a need for progesterone. So if you were to just, like women that cut out their ovaries, they are not healthy. They have a lot of health issues. Ask anyone who's had a total hysterectomy. She feeling great? Mm-mm. She might be feeling better than she was when she had a diseased uterus and ovaries. I mean, we're not just cutting them out for the fun of it. We do that when there's an illness. But there is absolutely need for supplemental hormones, for all kinds of stuff, because all of these hormones interact with all of your body systems, and that hormone progesterone is actually vital for the health of many, many parts of your body, not just for pregnancy.
It's really important to kind of zoom out and say a healthy body gives a pregnancy the most chance at having health, growing a healthy baby, having mental health, physical health, energy, and all the things that you're going to need to make it through pregnancy and beyond. And it's really short-sighted to just say there's an issue with progesterone. Let's only supplement with it. And when we say supplement, yes, what we're really saying is use a prescription, because most of the supplements are never going to be strong enough to actually support you.
They're just helping you to make progesterone. Like there's like progesterone plus oils and things like that. And they can help you to make progesterone potentially, but it maybe doesn't actually have progesterone in it. So it wouldn't be considered a supplemental form of progesterone. But some do, Caitlin, like you're saying, over-the-counter creams and drops and things like that.
Oils, yeah. But it's really important to, I know that so many people listening to this are like, I want a baby yesterday. I wanted a baby 4 years ago when we started this journey. And while that is still a goal, Sophia and I are always zooming out and saying, what's the root cause? We're not just only trying to support your body in case you do get pregnant this month. So let's get some progesterone on board. But why is progesterone low in the first place? And looking for those root causes for you individually, and there may be layered and more than just one. But we are looking at you as a whole individual and trying to help support you as the healthiest you that we can going into pregnancy for so many different reasons and outcomes that we're either trying to avoid or achieve. And so asking the question, why is there low progesterone? It's not even just about pregnancy. Like, it's about your bone health. It's about your heart health. It's about your mental health. It's about your circadian rhythm, because it touches all of those things.
So the first step to doing that is to be charting your cycle. Okay. You need to be paying attention to your cervical mucus, your cervical position, your basal body temperature, and looking at your overall cycle, not only the length of the cycle, but the length of the different phases of your cycle. This will give you your first clues about progesterone. Don't think that you can just march in your doctor's office and get a singular blood test and have it all figured out. That easy button, so to speak, really doesn't exist for this. So you need to be tracking your cycle. You need to be paying attention to all those different things, because that's going to be your first clue that your progesterone may be low. I would say the most classic example of low progesterone would be a short luteal phase. So that means the time between ovulation and when you start spotting or bleeding is less than 12 days. Medically, they'll say less than 10, but I'm bougie. I want to say 12. I want you to have that nice, robust luteal phase, because again, we're not just talking about the minimum for you to get a second line on your pregnancy test. We're talking about what is going to carry you into pregnancy and through pregnancy and beyond. And a really short luteal phase is indicative that progesterone is either not being made in the quantities that's needed or not being utilized properly. So that's going to be your first clue.
And when you're thinking about that luteal phase, it's important to get past day 10 because most implantation happens around day 11.
Implantation is more likely around day 8 or 9. Implantations that happen at day 11, though that can happen, that is a more rare, and it's sometimes indicative that something was going on with that baby and it might not be as healthy as it could be. That later implantation, it can happen. And therein lies, Caitlin, I'm so glad you brought that up, because therein lies why doctors are like hesitant to do anything about this or test anything about this or talk about this. Because are there women who have gone on to have absolutely healthy pregnancies, that babies implanted at day 11 or 12? Absolutely, yes. Are there women who have had healthy babies with a 9-day luteal phase? Absolutely, yes. There are definitely outliers. And the fact that you're having a later implantation, the fact that you're having a shorter luteal phase is not the kiss of death. Okay. So if you're noticing these things, it does not 100% mean you have some sort of problem. What I like to put together is I'm either not getting pregnant and not as fast as I'd like to, I'm not keeping pregnancies, or I can just tell within me that something's off. Plus, now I'm seeing a shorter luteal phase, and I'm not seeing implantation within the window that would be considered healthy or whatever. So it's important to note with pregnancy and progesterone, it's not a problem unless it's a problem. So yes, there are people that go on to have absolutely healthy pregnancies with short luteal phases. But if you're having a short luteal phase and you're not getting pregnant at the speed at which you would be deemed appropriate, or you're losing pregnancies, that's the smoking gun right there. That is absolutely indicative that your progesterone needs more support. I would argue that the lady with the short luteal phase who has the healthy pregnancies, she needs support too. You very well may get pregnant quickly and easily and have a beautiful pregnancy. Absolutely. But if that doesn't happen, now we have a place to start. Now we have something to look for, and we have something that is very treatable. And that's the other piece of this. This is treatable. This is something that there are proven treatments for, both in lifestyle and in medication. It's treatable. So what are we doing if there's something that's preventing people from getting pregnant, preventing them from having healthy pregnancies, preventing them from breastfeeding, and it's treatable? Shit. Yeah, what are we doing here as a medical society? We need to get on this.
So if somebody's looking at their charting and they're seeing, hey, I have a shorter luteal phase, what other things could they be kind of clued in for? What are other symptoms of having low progesterone?
So you may notice other symptoms in your body, okay? But the tricky part of this is low progesterone symptoms and high progesterone symptoms can really mimic each other. So that's where charting your cycle, and eventually when it comes down to it, we can talk about testing here.
Before we dig into this anymore, let's hear from one of our sponsors.
We're taking a break to talk about our sponsor, Fertility Cloud. In working with hundreds of you ladies, we have noticed a problem that has come up. I know it's come up for me, Caitlin. It's come up for your clients as well. And that is not only finding a doctor who is going to know how to help you, but one that wants to. We have a lot of issues here, and sometimes getting a simple blood test or actually getting a medication or talking to someone who's actually an expert in fertility can not only take an insane amount of time, but it can feel like you're fighting your doctor.
Yeah, or you're playing like Russian roulette to get in front of somebody who actually cares. We are so excited to be partnering with Fertility Cloud because they have a solution for all of these frustrations. Just last week, I had a client that needed right now care, and we couldn't get her in front of an OB. And she got a same day appointment with Fertility Cloud and spoke to a reproductive endocrinologist and had a prescription that she needed in her hand hours later. This is a solution that our industry desperately needs, and we are so excited to present to you.
So if you're in a remote area and you have to drive 4 hours to go see a doctor, or if you've been to multiple doctors and none of them seem to really listen or really care or want to take an approach that works for you, start up with My Fertility Cloud.
My Fertility Cloud has provided us a link, so check it out in the show notes. That will get you $25 off your first visit with one of their providers.
We're taking a quick break from this episode to talk about one of our sponsors, the Prenatal Nutrition Library.
We love the Prenatal Nutrition Library. It's a searchable database and app, which means you have answers within seconds and peace of mind that what you're eating during pregnancy is both safe and nutritious.
It's almost like having your own personal pregnancy dietitian in your back pocket that's going to not only tell you, is it safe to eat this? How much of that should I have? Yada, yada, yada. But give you actual meal plans so you know how to put it all together onto your plate today. And the meal plans are trimester specific, meaning, some women are kind of nauseous in their first trimester and maybe they need specific foods to help combat that. Prenatal Nutrition Library has got you covered. Or the fact that your baby's brain is growing rapidly in your third trimester and you need your nutrition to support that. Prenatal Nutrition Library meal plans has got you covered there too.
This is evidence-based information. Registered dietitians are in this app weekly answering members' questions. There's an exclusive podcast within the app that's run by Ryan, who is the prenatal dietitian that founded this entire thing. It's a wealth of knowledge and resources and will take you far beyond that one-page handout your doctor handed you that actually probably has out-of-date information about eating in pregnancy.
So head on over to the Prenatal Nutrition Library as soon as you get your big fat positive. Well, okay, first message me and Caitlin so we can do a happy dance with you. Then head over to the Prenatal Nutrition Library to get clear strategies to meet your nutrient needs, as well as to take the stress out of confirming what's safe and most optimal for you and your baby while you're pregnant. Use code FFF20 for 20% off.
All right, so let's say somebody's been charting, or maybe they haven't, but they're like, hey, I've heard about symptoms of low progesterone. What are actually potential symptoms of low progesterone, or what's just kind of some noise out there?
Okay, yeah, that's a really great question because, again, you are the expert on you. And I want to drill that into your mind every episode of this podcast that Caitlin and I, as experts, we can absolutely help you. Doctors can help you, but you are the expert on you. And so the more equipped you are at knowing what's going on with you, the better somebody can help you. So the tricky piece here is a lot of times the symptoms of low progesterone are similar to the symptoms of high progesterone. So we would see things like sore and tender breasts. We would see sometimes I'm
Spotting. Spotting is really
oh
common.
God, yeah, spotting. Spotting is really common. So, and that would include having bleeding leading up to your period and then bleeding following your period. So, sort of like imagine your period just sort of starting, right? Blood starts coming out and it just increases from there, and then that's your period. Low progesterone, though, that's going to be more like you wipe and you see a little something, and who knows, and then later in the day you go again, you see a little streak in your panties, and it just sort of trickles like that, like someone's slowly turning up the faucet until one day you're like, all right, well, I guess this is like my period now. Okay, is this day one? Was yesterday day one? I don't know, because it's sort of been like this drip that's just gradually increasing. Then you have your period, and then the drip continues until it sort of just stops. That can be a sign of low progesterone right there. And then other things too, like pain, cramping, menstrual migraines. That's a really big one. PMS. If you're having really bad PMS month after month, or even PMDD, like you're getting dysphoric, it's so bad. That can be a symptom of low progesterone as well.
Would you say anything like changes in temperatures still before you're bleeding? Like what would it look like in a BBT chart?
That is a great question, Caitlin. Thank you. So when your progesterone is low, we're going to see like a really slight rise in your basal body temperature. And you maybe wouldn't even see that like cover line spike, like it's below the cover line clearly. And then the next day it's above the cover line clearly. We would maybe see like a little increase and a little increase and a little, and then it finally reaches its peak. And then it leaves you sort of scratching your head, being like,
What
well,
day did
what
I
day
ovulate?
maybe was even the ovulation, and where
Mm-hmm.
would I even draw my cover line? And we would maybe see symptoms of like, it's high, it's low, it's low, it's high, it's high, it's high, it's high, it's low, it's in between. And we would see fluctuating basal body temperature without things like, well, I was up late that night, and then I
Mm-hmm.
was sick, and then I was exercising too much because that was the day of my half marathon. And then, we have to layer this. This is why it's so hard to kind of answer this in a DM or answer this in the comment section of a post, because we have to look at your whole life, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
can see fluctuations in basal body temperature because of your life. You
Mm-hmm.
went on a backpacking trip, or you were sick or injured or stressed or had alcohol or whatever. It could be so many different things impact it. So we have to put all the pieces together to get a look at whether or not low progesterone is the culprit or the suspected culprit. So that would be a big clue as well. Or we're just not really seeing much of a rise at all. Like maybe you only have like half a degree at most, and it's only sustained for like 4 or 5 days, and then it begins to tank. And then that dip in progesterone, the dip in basal body temperature coincides with some spotting or bleeding. That is very, very typical of low progesterone.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're saying like, "Hey, this sounds like me," and they
Mm-hmm.
walk into their doctor, what should they be asking their doctor?
Let's start this conversation with you being sort of mentally prepared for how the Western medical model looks at low progesterone. And this is a touchy subject, and I want you to know that regardless of your road to motherhood, I'm just sort of stating some facts here, and it will, of course, have opinion mixed in because I'm a human person. So, when it comes down to it, treating low progesterone, it's not very incentivized by the medical model. So doctors just don't really have a lot of experience doing it. They don't really know how to look for it, what to do about it if you have it. And it's sort of deemed as non-important because, like I said, there are women that have 9-day luteal phases that go on to have healthy pregnancy. There are women, like Caitlin was saying, her client or friend with a progesterone of 3 who is pregnant. That is wild. But that does happen. And these sort of anomalous outliers really skew the data and make a lot of doctors be like, and like I said already in this episode, it's not a problem unless it's a problem. So that can make it really hard to get treatment. And the other piece of it, the incentivization piece that I was talking about, is if you're going to do medicated cycles, so you're going to be taking Clomid, Letrozole, you're going to be using Follistim or whatever, your ovary is now already really stimulated. So that alone might make it to where these progesterone issues aren't showing their face as easily. But really the big piece is if you are doing IVF, which is sort of where all roads are leading these days. When you go to a typical reproductive endocrinologist, they'll maybe try a couple of things, but that's their big cash cow. And keep in mind that doctors are people. They are probably heavily in debt. They are probably very stressed. They're probably extremely overworked. And so having something to offer you that gets you pregnant and gets them paid, they're like, win-win, right? Like everybody goes home happy with this treatment option. So when you're doing IVF, your own endogenous progesterone is really not a thought because you're going to be doing POI, progesterone oil injections, which is this thick yellow oil that gets injected into your butt cheek every day. And your own progesterone that you make doesn't matter because you're going to be using this heavy, thick medication to raise your progesterone levels to get you ready for that transfer and then to carry you through that first trimester of pregnancy. So doctors are kind of like, if it's low, whatevs. We're going to do IVF anyway, and it doesn't matter because when you're doing a transfer from IVF, you're using these heavy medications, and so it's all good. So keep in mind that your doctor really may not have experience treating such things and might not even know what to look for or what to do. So go into it with a heart of, my doctor's a human person who is here to help me, but is arriving to this appointment with his or her own baggage and biases and needs. And so we're going to have to work together. And it's not going to be, I'm going to battle my doctor to get what I want. Don't go in there with an axe to grind. Go in there with a helping hand to hold that you are going to together find out what you need. Okay? So with that said, going into your doctor and explaining what's been happening in your luteal phase and showing them either your charts or if they like to look at ovulation tests. My doctor liked to look at ovulation tests. And so obviously I knew when to take them because I had been charting my cycle. But to her, that was a piece that she really wanted to see in order to adequately diagnose my progesterone issues. And so I showed her pictures of my ovulation tests that I was having this peak ovulation day and then starting to bleed only 8 days apart. And so to her, she was like, okay, well, that's what I need to see. So you might go into your doctor and, ask, I think that I'm having this. This is what I've been seeing. What would you need to see in order to think that this is an issue? Or what do you typically see when you see this issue? And sort of ask some questions and go in ready to collaborate because your doctor they took an oath to first do no harm. And so they're going to want to satisfy their own, I don't want to say curiosity, but what is the right word? They're going to need to satisfy their own knowledge checklist, diagnostic criteria, let's say, before they're going to want to prescribe you for anything. So For some doctors, they want you to take ovulation tests at home and show them. For some, your charting may be enough. Others may want to do a blood draw. Okay, so let's pause here and talk about blood draws for a second, because a singular blood draw is not going to tell you a whole lot about your progesterone. In my opinion, it is, I don't want to say it's useless, because sometimes it's a stone you need to step on to get your doctor to be satisfied enough to help you along. But like we've said earlier in this episode, progesterone fluctuates. So doing a singular draw one time, it's really not going to give us a very full picture at all. It is possible that you do that one draw and you see that your progesterone is like a 3, and your doctor says, well, we need to see it over 9 or over 15 in order to call this like a healthy level. And so it might just take that. Okay, you might just go in, your doctor says, well, let's do a blood draw. You do a blood draw and they say, okay, it's low, now let's do treatments. But that blood draw, first of all, it needs to be timed properly. Because like I said, your progesterone, you do have little bits floating around in your body, servicing all your organs all cycle long. But we're not going to see that big surge until after ovulation. And even then, your body is not a light switch, sweetheart. It's not just going to flip and start cranking out progesterone. It takes a while for that little corpus luteum. Remember, the egg that was inside of it is small, so small, we can barely even see it with a naked eye. So the sac around it is not really that big. We got to give it a chance to develop and pump that progesterone into your bloodstream at levels that can even be detected. So best time to test is 7 days after your confirmed ovulation. Is 6 days okay? Is 8 days okay? Yes. All right. Don't get like, oh my gosh, well, my day 7 is on Easter Sunday. How will I ever get a blood draw? Girl, go to the day after. It's fine. But around day 7 is where we're going to see, we'd be most likely to see your ovary at her best. Like, when's she making the most progesterone? Likely around day 7. So 7 after ovulation, not day 7 of your cycle, day 7 post ovulation. And the reason that I'm not giving you a date like cycle day 21, as you may hear, is because guess what? Every woman ovulates on a different day of her cycle. So a day 21, if you didn't ovulate until day 18, it might not be accurate of what your ovary is actually capable of. And cycle day 21, if you don't ovulate till day 30, is going to just be exhausting and horrible.
And even every woman's different. Every woman's cycle, it can be different. Your cycle this month could be day
Cycle
11.
to cycle can vary.
Next month, it could be day 14
So
that you
true,
ovulate.
Caitlin.
So even if you're used to saying, okay, I have a 27-day cycle generally, you can have a 27-day cycle and this month ovulate on day 14 and next month ovulate on day 17. Okay, so while you may see patterns throughout your cycles, every cycle is different. Every egg that gets ovulated is different. Every egg's journey from primordial follicle to being the, dominant follicle that gets teed up for ovulation has different inputs based on your circadian rhythm, your stressors, your diet, your travel schedule. So many different things can impact a cycle. And so sometimes you have to be able to be armed with more data to actually help your doctor pull your progesterone on the right day. And that is why Sophia's doctor asked for ovulation predictor test kit evidence, was because that's the way she knows how to determine when you ovulated. The thing about it is, so many of you that have been listeners for so long and actually do the things that we recommend on this podcast is that you may be more informed on how to track your cycle and determine when you're ovulating than your OBGYN, who doesn't have special training in cycle tracking. So,
and who sees women from all different backgrounds all the time, and some of which are struggling to even afford a tampon, let alone tracking their cycle. Like your doctor may not be used to women of your caliber.
Right.
You might be blowing her mind. All right. And rightly so. And you know what? Please do. We need more of you blowing your doctor's mind. We need all of you coming in droves with all of your information to the doctor so that we raise the standard of what medicine thinks women are capable of. Because that's a whole nother piece, is there's so much, I'm just a stupid, hysterical woman, and I can't tell if I'm pooping or peeing or bleeding anything. It's all just one hole, isn't it? And we need to break that paradigm. We need to break that vision of who women of reproductive age are. Break this thing that like we will stumble in 6 months pregnant and say, oh, I just thought I was getting fat. Like, we don't want to be that woman anymore. We want to be somebody who is the CEO of her cycle, who knows what's going on, who's the expert on her own body and knows how to hire experts to help her. So anyway, after you ovulate, 7 days post ovulation is if you have to just do a singular blood draw, and that's the starting block with your doctor, fine. 7 days after ovulation. And if your doctor wants to call it a cycle day 21, girl, let her. You can know within you that it's cycle day 29 and it's 7 days after ovulation, and you can just say, it's my cycle day 21, wink, because that's maybe even the name of the test. We're talking about, there's facial tissue and there's Kleenex. The Kleenex version is this is just called a cycle day 21, as they may just call it that. But really, we're looking for a baseline progesterone would be the name of the test at the laboratory. And so you may have to be like, yeah, it's cycle day 21. Roll your eyes internally, go to the lab and get your blood drawn. What we're looking for is 7 days, give or take, post-ovulation.
So if somebody goes into their doctor and they order them a 21-day progesterone, the doctor may call it that and may even have the knowledge and education to know you're going to go in on a different day. What they're going to do, unless you miraculously walk in 7 days post-ovulation, is put an order in for you to go to a lab location or to their very office to come back on a different day. So you then get to head home and be like, I'm going in on this day 7 days after ovulation. So you don't need to call and argue with them and say, it's actually day 24. Just show up 7 days after you confirm ovulation. Or what I like to tell people, 8 or 9 days after you see a peak ovulation strip. I would rather you be charting.
Yes.
But if you're only doing the ovulation stick, 7 days after that is not 7 days post-ovulation, because you don't ovulate the very moment that you see a peak ovulation test.
Such an important point. Thank you. Yes, 8 or 9 days after you see a peak strip. And listener, I know you're like, you two have been preaching against ovulation strips for years. What are you doing? And it's true. We don't love them when there's other data that's so much more pertinent, which is like what your body's actually doing. But there's a time and a place for certain tests. And if this is something that your doctor is familiar with and that helps them help you, you can use it along with charting. Okay.
And let me tell you,
not a substitute.
So many people write to us and they're like, we know you like BBT, but here's my OPK, or they're in a course and they're asking questions about it. Sophia and I, it's not that we're like, don't use them. Don't only use them. Just like we don't want you hopping into an app and saying, this is the day one of my first bleed, this is the day one of my next bleed, and letting it choose what day you ovulated, because it's going to be wrong 9 times out of 10 or more. So, don't feel like you have to walk over to us or listen to this with your tail between your legs. There's no judgment. We just want to help educate, empower, and allow you to make this fertility journey the healthiest and the shortest possible. Get you to that end goal.
For real.
And talking about time.
When there's a discrepancy between what the P test is telling you and what your chart is telling you, the problem isn't your chart. Okay, let's just say that.
Yeah, for sure. And let's take a break and hear from one of our sponsors. And then I have another question for you, Soph.
Okay.
Hey guys, we're taking a break from our episode and I want to talk about something that's super confusing. When you head down the supplement aisle and you're looking for a prenatal, and on the prenatal bottle itself, it says Do not take if you're trying to conceive, pregnant, or breastfeeding. Like, what the
Yeah,
heck?
it says talk to your doctor if you are pregnant, could be pregnant, breastfeeding, postpartum, whatever. And every supplement has this. You go down the supplement aisle, you go shopping on whatever supplement website, and there's a disclaimer on every bottle of every single thing, which means that everything that you've been taking your whole life long is now a big question mark about whether or not you are potentially harming yourself by taking something where you're trying to be healthy. So that is why we partnered with Needed. Needed is a perinatal nutrition supplement brand that has a wide array of products specifically designed for women who are pregnant, trying to become pregnant, breastfeeding, or postpartum. So it's not just that these products like can work if you're in that situation, or oh, it's probably okay if you take it while you're trying to conceive. No. These products are researched, they are formulated, and they are put together specifically for women who are trying to conceive, pregnant, breastfeeding, and postpartum.
This answers so many questions. I always get asked, like, what can I take? It's cold and flu season. What's safe? Needed has an immune support. That's safe whether you're trying to conceive, pregnant. It's even safe for your little ones.
And it's not just immune support. They've got collagen, they've got hydration support, they have digestive support, they have prenatal multi. They even made a line for dudes.
Okay, so back from our break, we go to the doctor, we talk them into a 21-day progesterone, quotation marks, right? I can't do that without thinking of Joey from Friends.
I'm sorry.
When you hear that, because we know progesterone fluctuates within a day, we know it fluctuates within a luteal phase, we know it fluctuates within a pregnancy, what would be more optimal? Like if you had a doctor that was like, I'm down, what do you want me to order? What would you tell them to request if they wanted like a really perfect picture?
Cereal blood draws.
And so is
Cereal
that
blood draws.
like honey bunches of oats cereal?
No.
Or what does cereal mean?
Blueberry morning. Do you guys remember Blueberry morning?
No, I
guess
don't.
it's still, oh man, it was the most best cereal. It's still on the shelves, but they've changed it. It's not good anymore. It's weird now. It has like a weird like blueberry snow cone flavor, blueberry taste to it. It's not fresh blueberry taste anymore. I digress. Okay, so cereal blood draws. Cereal like with an S, like the serial number on the back of your
Or a serial
laptop.
killer, for all the
Or
other
a serial
podcasts you're
killer.
listening to.
Yeah, Caitlin, I was just deliberately not using that. Yeah.
Okay, so what's a serial blood draw?
So now that you have that really positive image in your brain, so what that looks like is you come in every day or every other day to get your blood drawn, and we look at your progesterone over time from your suspected ovulation all the way through either your positive pregnancy test or your period. And it can show us how your progesterone is changing over time, because there can be so many variations in progesterone. It is so possible for your ovary to, once you ovulate, be like, progesterone rage. And she's like spinning her glow sticks and is like, and the double bass is pumping. And then after 3 or 4 days, just pooping out and nothing really happening. So you can go get a singular blood draw and be like, what? My progesterone's like 28. This is fan-freaking-tastic. And then 3 days later, you're wiping and seeing blood and going, what the freak just happened? What the hell is this? And so looking for that change, because remember, sisters, it's the change that makes you bleed. And so having a sharp drop is going to make you bleed. And then having a slow decline that gets past a certain threshold will make you bleed. So there's many different reasons you could be having the spotting. So serial blood draws, that is my absolute favorite way to know what is happening with your progesterone. But you need to go to your doctor for that. and you need to go to the laboratory for that, and you need to get your vein poked for that, and you need to pay the technician, and you need to pay the people that measure the progesterone, you need to pay the people that print it out, you need to pay the person who's reading you the results. And so it is expensive, and it is exhausting, and it hurts to have your vein poked every day of your life or every other day. And you have to go to the place to do this. So if you are homesteading it out in Haley, Idaho, and you got to drive your butt into Boise every time, girl, that's a lot of miles, a lot of time. So that is why this can be, it's the gold standard, but it's a big reason why doctors aren't like, oh, hey, let's just do this now. So you may need to communicate, look, I am really committed to learning this, and I really want to know this. And I know that these numbers might seem sort of silly to you, or you feel like you can treat me based off of just this one progesterone draw, but I really suspect that there's more going on. And I would really love your help with this. I'm willing to drive. I'm willing to pay, or submit my claim to insurance or do that arduous work. I just need your help because I can't do this by myself. And something like that,
Might
a
go a long
doctor
way.
with a heart to serve,
Mm-hmm.
it will go a long way. And if your doctor is resistant to something like that, how much are they going to resist you when you're wanting to wear a continuous glucose monitor instead of taking their orange drink test? How much are they going to resist you when you say, you know what, I'm not interested in doing 7 dozen ultrasounds and exposing my baby to that sound radiation just so that you can give me some arbitrary number about how thick their cord is or something like that? You may need to choose a different provider if someone's really not willing to partner with you after you come to them with such a heart of collaboration. Um, so that you may see your doctor's colors really quickly, and it can be like pounding your head against a brick wall if you do live in Haley, Idaho, and the only doctor near you is already a 45-minute drive, and now you have to drive an hour and 45 minutes into Caldwell in order to find somebody who's willing to help you. So anyway, you now know more about progesterone and the Treasure Valley geographical lineup
Jeez.
than
Anybody that's
you
never
may.
been to Idaho is like, what do you even
Caitlin
mean
and I
Treasure
both used to live.
Valley?
That's, I
Oh,
think, the only city that Caitlin and I both, or the only place Caitlin and I have both lived together. So you'll hear like Idaho references from us because we both understand it because we both used to live there. Not at the same
so
time though.
so there are other ways to test progesterone. You can
There
do a
are.
Dutch test. You can do a
You can do a
proof
Dutch
test.
test
You can
or
do
a
lots of
proof
other
test.
things. When would you recommend choosing one of those options? Would you recommend choosing one of those options?
I totally would recommend choosing one of those options. So, if you are like, I suspect this, I'm maybe not like pressing the gas, flooring it in my fertility journey. I'd rather take steps to figure out what's going on before I just like sound the alarm and like involve all these doctors and spend all this money. It would be very advantageous to use Prove, which is at-home progesterone urine metabolite testing. Um, excuse me, or a Dutch test, which is dried urine testing. It's a very similar mechanism to the Prove test, except this one you actually have to like mail into a laboratory, and they show you much more than just your progesterone. So, cost effective, Prove would be number one. Dutch is definitely more expensive, and I so highly recommend if you're doing a Dutch test to do it through a practitioner because the information you're going to get is going to be like looking at a map in Japanese. It is not very easy to navigate for the average Jane. And Caitlin and I have both had to go through special training in order to be able to even interpret these tests and understand how to treat from them. So finding a practitioner who can work with you, virtually or whatever, so that you can actually interpret these results. But that is a way that you can do this without having to drive to a laboratory every day. But I want to put a huge asterisk next to that because urine metabolite PDG is not the same thing as actual serum progesterone. They're directly correlated, but they're not the same. So there is a small percentage of women who metabolizes their progesterone differently. And you can have totally healthy or unhealthy levels of progesterone, and it's not going to show up in your urine in a detectable way. And so it is possible that your symptom set, that your own intuition and what you're going to see in these urine tests do not align. But it is a place to start. It's a place to start at home. It's a place where you can go on the Dutch Test website, or I think Prove even has some practitioners, where you can be like, who can help me with this today? Bing, bang, boom, hire them right away. It's cash pay. So you don't have to wait for insurance, whether that's a positive or a negative for you, depends on your own financial situation. So you can get the ball rolling yourself, and that can sort of be step one. And then if your results are suspicious, inconclusive, or whatever, then you can go in for the serial blood draws. Or if you're seeing very clearly that your progesterone is low, or then you can see that too. And with the proof strips, it's not like the serial blood draws where we're going to see it's high, then it's low, then it's high again, or whatever. You're just going to get a yes or no, a positive or a negative. It doesn't give you exact numbers. The Dutch test does give you numbers, but again, it's numbers of metabolite. So
Right.
it's going to be based off of how well your timing is of taking the test, your levels of hydration, and it's not going to be like, what's your progesterone exactly doing at this moment? It's more like, what was it doing over the past few hours that this urine was collecting in your bladder? So pros and cons to each one. It could just be a great place to start, or it could be the place where you start and finish because it gives you all the answers you need.
So if I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, first, I'm always going to start with serum if I'm working with a client. And then if I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and I want to look at over time and what's happening in the luteal phase, I'll do the Dutch test that's a little bit more expensive. It's called cycle mapping. Prove has a complete test that will look at your whole cycle and do similar things, but it's not as detailed. There's also a couple brands that will look at PDG metabolites, at progesterone metabolites in your urine, also at home. Mira does it now, and Nido does it. I don't have experience with the Nido. I've looked at a few dozen of the Mira, and my input is that the PDG part of the test is faulty. Like I've seen really high PDG levels before an ovulation, and I'm like, what's going on here? I've seen really low or weird inconsistent. Yeah.
I think that I think there's something to do with their test strips. I think that like the strip itself
is an issue. Not sure what it is.
I love the concept of it. I love it. I just think that I think that in like 5 years, that thing is going to be like, but right now it's limping along. In my opinion.
It's not right.
You're hearing it first here, okay? Because people ask me about this online all the time, and I want Mira to be good, but I don't love it, and so I haven't really reviewed them because I don't want to hurt them. I want that.
I haven't personally used it, so I don't know. For me, I've just looked at a lot of results. So, okay, people go, they get a serum test. Maybe they do some of this at-home testing. We're going to need to wrap up here in a couple minutes. But are there one or two things that you could be like, this is going to help everyone improve their progesterone status? Everyone should be doing these things and could be helped.
I'll tell you what they are, but I'll tell you, you're not going to like them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you. And it's because it's stuff like not scrolling late at night. So the way that our body make hormones, it really, our light exposure is a huge piece of it, believe it or not. And so if you want to make better progesterone, reducing your stress and getting high quality sleep are two game changers, absolutely non-negotiable items that will impact your progesterone. So being stressed out, this includes chronically being inflamed, meaning you know that dairy messes with you, but you like to eat it. So you keep eating it and then having to like be in the bathroom all day afterwards. The fact that you know that gluten is a problem for you and you keep eating it. The fact that you know that these scented candles and air spray and everything like that is a problem, but you just like using it. That is impacting your overall inflammation, and that is greatly impacting your progesterone. Okay. So, working on those things is going to absolutely help. Getting solid sleep every night, creating a restful environment for yourself, and doing all the things that requires, and putting in the time. Okay. We want instant gratification. We want everybody that's like, oh, I'm a night owl, I can't go to bed before 11. Yes, you can, but it's a long road to get there. It's a long, boring road to get there. And oh, I don't want to do it either. I don't want to do it either. I want to lay in bed, scrolling my phone, looking at recipes. I want to be fantasizing about vacations and watching the meme of a chameleon jetting its tongue out to this little kid's face and laughing. Like, I want to do that too. But your progesterone, your ovaries, they can't take it. We need to tone down the blue light in the evenings. We need to turn off the serial killer podcast. We need to stop reading the news articles that make you go to your husband, look at this, look what they're doing in San Francisco. People are just stealing right out of the stores. Doesn't anybody have any honor anymore? And you just start getting all jacked up in your mind about the state of the American school system or whatever it is that gets your blood pumping. You need to do things differently to get your progesterone online. And you need to eat a diet that's rich in vitamin A, that's rich in fiber and brightly colored fruits and vegetables and dark colored fruits and vegetables. And you need to drastically reduce your seed oil consumption. Okay, so that is so hard because it's in everything. Like every packaged food you're looking at, you're like, oh, cool, sunflower oil, safflower oil, corn oil, soy oil, canola oil, vegetable oil. It's in everything. So even you go to Chipotle, it's all cooked in brown rice oil, rice bran oil, or whatever. So I'm not saying eliminate it, I'm saying reduce it. It's basically do all the shit you hate. That's going to help your progesterone. And therein lies why I believe this is the next silent fertility epidemic. I believe this is driving a lot of the issues that we're seeing. And the reason why this is the hill that I've decided to die on, and why I've changed my entire practice to be focused on helping you optimize your progesterone. There it is, ladies. We just
And
laid it all out for you.
The interesting thing about that too is it's going to touch and overlap over other things. Like I see low progesterone in PCOS a lot. I see low progesterone in unexplained secondary fertility, like secondary infertility.
Absolutely.
You know,
I see it in hypothalamic amenorrhea. Like every single person has
right.
it.
Right. So you can have a lot of different root causes, but a lot of the treatment will look similar and some of it won't. And so that's why you do really want an expert in your corner to help you kind of navigate and see what's going on in your body and how do we treat it. And what's more than just slapping a progesterone prescription on top of it. So we've teased this because I can think of 20 other questions. But before we head on to our Yeah Girls, let's hear from our sponsors one more time. I'm so excited to tell you that the PCOS app is sponsoring this podcast episode. The PCOS app is a one-stop shop for all things PCOS. It's also your meal guide and inspo all in one. If you love listening to me on this podcast and you feel like, hey, I want Caitlin to be in my ear every day encouraging me about how to manage my PCOS, then you have to go download the PCOS app. We have curated articles to answer questions that you have about PCOS. There are short snippets in the PCOS Answers podcast exclusive to the PCOS app. We also have recipes where I not only give you the recipe, but teach you within the recipe itself what I have done to make it more blood sugar and hormone supporting so that you can take your own recipes and make them more PCOS friendly. If you've been looking for the Google of all things PCOS with the filter of compassion and expertise that you get from Caitlin Johnson, RD, then you have found it in the PCOS app. Head to your Android or Apple store today, download it, and let's hang out. All right. Yeah, girl time. Do you have a yeah, girl? Because I'm looking at a yeah, girl right now.
You're looking at a yeah, girl.
Yeah.
No eyes, who dis? I had LASIK last week.
Show us
I got
the
it
goggles.
done, finally.
Give us the goggles if they didn't see it. Why you should also watch us on YouTube now. You look so hot right now.
What's up?
You going skiing?
Yeah, so they send you home with these goggles. And they send you home with this on top of the goggles. You drive home, you ride home looking like a racquetball player trying to see a 3D movie in the 90s. And so basically, I'm not going to go through the whole LASIK procedure and what they do, but your eye is extremely sensitive afterwards because it's healing. It's a laser on your eyeball. And the healing process requires that your eye be undisturbed. So that means nothing can touch it at all. And so it's very uncomfortable afterwards. I mean, the ride home was more than uncomfortable. It was downright painful. It was like, oh my gosh, like I'd been maced. It was so awful. So, but for the days afterwards, your eyes are so dry and scratchy and blurry. And so the human urge is to rub that eye, right? Your brain says, you've got dust in your eye, you've got a hair in your eye, you've got something in your eye. We need to stimulate your eye to water, rub that eye. And you cannot rub your eye after surgery. You will really hurt yourself if you do that. So you have to put the goggles on so you don't inadvertently, brush your eye, touch your eye. And then I have the blessing of wearing the goggles for much longer than the average Jane because I have little children who will cobra strike their fingers into your eye at any point or flail their head back or kick their leg or whatever. And having an injury to your eye, even something minor like, just getting it bumped, could disturb the surgical site and really harm your eye. So the goggles are worn as protection from that. So when I'm around my kids, I have to wear the goggles. They're in a different room right now, so I get to be goggle free. But I got to wear the goggles until Thursday.
That's so exciting.
And you wear them. Yeah, you wear them at night as well, just so you don't
do things inadvertently in the night.
Rub your eye. Yeah, so it's really exciting. My vision is improving day after day. I'm still blurry. Anything further than about a foot from my face is pretty blurry, but less blurry day upon day. So it is improving. And the eye pain now my eyes just feel a little dry, a little scratchy, not hurting at all. That ride home though, hot diggity. Oh my gosh, my friend Bennett drove me home and I was like, oh, it was so painful. They give you like Xanax and Valium, and I was like, I don't need that. Like, I'm not going to take that because they put these drops that numb your eye when they do the procedure. So you walk out of there and you're like, I'm fine. Well, 15, 20 minutes later, those drops have worn off and you are like crazy. And so I was like, I don't need these meds. I don't want to take these heavy duty drugs. I got home and was like, give me all the pills. Just like buried my head in pillows in my guest room and slept for like 12 hours. And when I woke up, things were far better, thankfully.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I'm going to do it someday.
So yeah, girl, don't have to wear those big Magoo glasses anymore.
Well, my yeah girl today is, I feel like I have two. Mini yeah girl, big yeah girl. BJ and I have been exercising a lot more lately, and I took my kids to the zoo yesterday. Like, talk about reasons to exercise and just get healthy. Like, it's not just about weight, people. Like, I took my kids to the zoo with extra nieces and nephews, and had a lot of kids to take care of. And we have a really awesome zoo in Wichita, and it's very big. And my toddler's just in the like realm of like, I don't want to be in the stroller, but I can't walk the whole day at the zoo. And I just felt so strong. I carried him for a lot of the way, and we probably walked like 4 miles, and my legs weren't hurting or tired at the end of the day. We even like put the kids down and went for a 3-mile walk after that, like that night, which a hot day at the zoo previously and carrying my probably 30-pound toddler around would have just put me out for the day. I would have felt really tired. So that was like, I just felt really good about being strong and feeling healthy, and like all the reasons why you want to do that are not vanity related or just like fitting in your clothes. I just love finding those hurrah moments. But the other side of my second yeah girl is once we hang up, I'm heading out to go hang out with one of my best friends here with the kids. They're camping on a lake for like a week, but it's actually really close by. So we're going to go on a boat and go swim. And it's like the end of summer kind of fun before we head back to school. So just feeling happy.
Yeah, girl, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear you describing exercise in that way too, because that is what I'm talking about. Like, I do CrossFit, and it can have like a toxic level of competitiveness to it, you know, and you're like racing the clock, and a lot of times there's like a you know, you check in and like log your workouts, and it tells you like, today, you know, this is the fastest you've ever done this one, or this is the, you know, last time you did 10 more pull-ups during this round or whatever. And it can feel like you're competing against yourself. You're maybe competing against other people. But you know, it's been a long process, listeners, but I've let that go. And now it's like, listen, I'm here because I want to be able to enjoy my children, and I want to be able to enjoy my life. And I'm not going to lift 150 pounds over my head and then be like hobbling around the next day, because why? My kid may weigh 150 pounds at some point, but I doubt I'm going to be carrying her around over my head like this.
Right.
You know, so just having that perspective of like enjoying things, enjoying your time at the zoo instead of like sweating your ass off and panting and being like, oh God, when is this over? I'm exhausted. But being like, oh, you want to go see the red pandas? Let's do it. Like, that's awesome, Caitlin. That's the heart that I have been building as well. And listeners, I hope that can be
and that's
your
what I want to
towards exercise too.
encourage.
It's so healthy.
Yeah, that it helps you feel good. And I've actually come to a lot of other activities in the last 6 weeks when we've been really a lot more intentional over the last 6 weeks, feeling so much stronger or more capable or just more comfortable in the situation because I have this endurance that I hadn't had in a while. And so anyway, it's feeling really good.
Yeah.
Well,
I love it. That is awesome.
Another episode in the books. If you're interested in progesterone, you know where to find our girl, Sophia, online, ttc.nutritionist. Are you going to change that, or are you going to keep it?
I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
Because it's still my focus. You know, I don't want to work with someone who's trying to make their progesterone good at menopause. I don't care. I hope that she gets the care that she wants, but like, am I going to want to read books about that and like study that?
Not your
I like
interest.
helping you have babies. It's my favorite. My favorite is helping you have babies. So if you're trying to conceive and you want your progesterone to be good, I'm your girl. Okay. It's my favorite.
All right, listeners, if you love us, like us, this has been interesting, you've learned something, please subscribe, please rate, please review, and we will see you next week.
Hey, it's Sophia. If you love the show and want to continue your health and fertility journey using our resources, head on over to foodfreedomfertility.com for show notes, links to products and services, information about our guests, and our newsletter. Again, that's foodfreedomfertility.com. Thanks for listening.